Imagine if you could go back and watch the junior career of Formula One legends like Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, or even more recently, Max Verstappen. Well, in a way you can. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of junior drivers all across the world in various different categories, all dreaming of becoming a Formula One driver themselves. So that's who today's video is going to be about. 5 drivers who I think could make it to Formula One and that you should definitely be keeping an eye on. Now, are any of these drivers going to go on to win 7 Formula One World Championships and 100+ Grand Prix? Probably not, right? But that's the beauty of motorsport, you never know what can happen. Plus, this way you can show off teammates when a new driver gets announced in Formula One and everybody else is asking, who's this guy, I've never heard of him. You can flex your knowledge, clearly demonstrating that you know wheel better than your mates. So let's start in Formula 2. Now, some of these names you may be aware of, some of them maybe not. But first up on our list is Arvid Lindblad. Now, Arvid started go-karting at the age of 5 and was quickly making waves in the go-karting scene. So much so that in 2021, Red Bull Racing decided to sign him up as a junior driver while he was still in go-karts. The 17-year-old was in FIA Formula 3 last year, finishing P4 in the standings, but did take the most race wins all year. And this was his first year in the championship too. During the off-season between Formula 3 and Formula 2 this year, he decided to take part in the Toyota Racing Series, or the Formula Regional Oceania Championship. And to say that he dominated would be a bit of an understatement. Arvid absolutely destroyed that grid. He won almost every single race, was barely off the podium all year, and wrapped up the championship with a few rounds to go. And at such a young age, he's proving exactly why Red Bull have put his faith in him and why he's well on his way to Formula One. So much so that Red Bull even asked the FIA for special dispensation so Arvid could get his super license 1 year early at 17 instead of 18. You can catch Arvid in the FIA Formula 2 Championship this year, racing for Campos alongside Spanish driver Pepe Marti, who's also a Red Bull junior and a driver you may want to keep your eye on too. He is part of A1 Manager, which is Fernando Alonso's management group. Fernando also manages Gabriel Bortoleto from Formula 3 to Formula 2 and now in Formula 1. So if Pepe Marti also gets to Formula 1, I mean, eventually Fernando is just going to manage half of the grid. Maybe that's Fernando's plan. He's going to nurture all of this young talent so that it's just him and 19 drivers that he manages, and then he tells them all to get out of his way so that he can finally win his 3rd World Championship. Very crafty, Fernando. Sticking with Formula 2, let's take a look at Leonardo Fornaroli. The Italian driver is the reigning FIA Formula 3 champion from last year, but he did win the championship in a very strange way. Out of all 20 races that year, he didn't win a single one, but instead won the championship through ruthless consistency, scoring points at almost every single race. But the F3 title fight that year was a very closely fought battle, and it even came down to the very last lap, in fact the very last corner of the year. Going into the final lap, Leonardo Fornaroli was losing the title to his countryman Gabriele Mini. All that Leonardo needed to do was gain one more position to ensure he won the championship. So it was very much do or die for Fornaroli. So he then went on to make one of the most audacious overtakes I have ever seen from a young driver. Going into the Parabolica of all places, he chucked a move to the inside, kind of pushing off the other driver, but that move did end up securing him the championship. So Fornaroli was promoted to Formula 2 this year and is racing with the team that won the championship last year with Gabriel Bortoleto in Victor Racing. And at one point in the year, he was actually leading the championship, but it is very early days now, so it's basically a new championship leader after every single weekend. Now, unfortunately for Fornaroli, he isn't part of a junior Formula 1 academy at the moment, but I would expect that to change if he goes on to fight or even win this year's F2 title. As I said earlier, you can watch Leonardo Fornaroli in the FIA Formula 2 Championship. Now, we all know that being a racing driver is very, very expensive and very, very hard, but something that's very easy to do and also free is subscribing to my YouTube channel. So make sure you do that before we get into the Formula 3 drivers. Next up, we're heading to the FIA Formula 3 Championship for the young Brazilian driver Rafael Camara. He started go-karting back in 2011 but had a breakthrough year in 2021, winning a bunch of go-karting championships and races. He made his step up into single-seaters in 2022 in the Italian F4 Championship. He would finish the year in P3 in the standings just behind Alex Dunn, a McLaren junior you may want to take a look at, and eventual championship winner that year, Kimi Antonelli. It's kind of crazy to think that someone racing in F3 now was racing alongside Kimi just a few years ago, and now Kimi's already in Formula 1. Camara also competed that year in ADAC Formula 4, again the championship that Kimi won, and again finished in P3 in the standings behind a P2 McLaren Junior in Taylor Barnard. So I would say a very successful first year in single-seaters for Rafael Camara. He would spend 2023 and 2024 in a bunch of different Formula Regional Championships, but this year is making the step up to FIA Formula 3 with Trident. And so far, his Formula 3 campaign has been incredibly impressive, with 2 pole positions, 2 race wins, 2 fastest laps. There's not much more this kid could have done. And if he can keep up this consistency, he's definitely going to be one of the favourites to win the title. So make sure that you're following him along in FIA Formula 3 with the Trident team. Sticking with Formula 3, if you were watching last time out in Bahrain, you will have noticed a last-minute standing in the form of young British driver Freddie Slater. Now, Freddie's junior career is one of the most impressive that I have ever seen. Arguably the most impressive of any driver on this list. Now, obviously, Freddie won a bunch of races and tournaments and championships and go-karts, just like everyone else did on this list. But 2023 was a very, very busy year for Freddie. Not only was he competing in go-karts, but he also took part and won the Ginetta Junior Championship, as well as jumping in and out of various single-seaters. And he was competitive in everything he raced for, showing a huge level of adaptability, which is something that Formula 1 teams really look out for. But 2024 would prove to be Freddie Slater's breakthrough year, competing full-time in 2 Formula 4 championships, winning both titles, as well as competing in the Euro 4 championship. Now, winning 2 Formula 4 titles in a single year is very, very impressive. The Formula 1 drivers that have done this previously are the likes of Kimi Antonelli and Oliver Behrman. Now, not all Formula 4 championships are equal. There are some more competitive than others. And arguably the most competitive is the Italian Formula 4 championship, where Freddie Slater decided it was time to break some records. He took the record for the most race wins in a single season, winning 15 out of 20 races. The record was previously held by Kimi Antonelli, who won 13 out of 20, which in itself is insane, so Freddie added an extra 2 to that total. He would also set a new record for the winningest margin of 143 points ahead of P2. Alongside this, he also took 11 pole positions and 10 fastest laps. Absolute domination of one of the most competitive junior categories in all of racing. The other Formula 4 championship he took part in was the UAE Formula 4 championship, of which he won, but only by a few points. And finally, his Euro 4 championship, he came in P2. As I mentioned earlier, Freddie did take part in the first round of the FIA Formula 3 championship, but he was there as a last-minute stand-in, although he did manage to get a podium on his first race out, which was very, very impressive. But Freddie now is taking part in the GB3 championship in the UK. You can watch the GB3 championship right here on YouTube, and like Freddie Slater does, he dominated the first weekend at Silverstone, taking 2 pole positions and 2 race wins. The only race he didn't win was the reverse pole race, where he was unfortunately involved in a bit of an incident. Now let's take a look at a young star who's rising through the ranks of the go-karting scene. This is young British driver Kenzo Craigie. Now, I am by no means a go-karting expert, but winning the Junior World Go-Karting Championship has to count for something. Previous championship winners are the likes of Alain Prost, Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, and even Freddie Slater. So I'd say that's a pretty good start to this young lad's career. On top of this, he's also part of the Mercedes Junior Driver Program. And I've got to say that Mercedes definitely know how to pick their talent. Some of their other drivers include the likes of Esteban Ocon, George Russell, and of course, Kimi Antonelli. As well, Mercedes do appear to invest very heavily in their junior program, so I wouldn't at all be surprised if we see Kenzo jumping up to single-seaters in a few years' time. Kenzo took to go-karting very, very quickly and even managed to get a podium in his first competitive race at just 6 years old. This year, Kenzo will be jumping up to the OK Senior class, which I'm pretty sure you can watch on YouTube. I'll put a link to it down in the description if I can find one. And the final driver I want to talk about is a name that's been floating around the Formula 1 paddock for years, it feels like, and that name is Colton Herta. Now, of course, with the addition of the Cadillac Formula 1 team coming to the F1 grid next year, there's been plenty of rumours around who may be taking the seat, with the likes of Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas all been floating around. But it would make a lot of sense for an American team to come into Formula 1 and bring over one of their IndyCar drivers. Cadillac and Andretti have a very close connection over in the States, so if there is an American driver coming over from IndyCar, it would likely be from the Andretti team, and Colton Herta is one of their drivers. So could 2026 finally be the year that we get a driver come across from the pond from IndyCar to race in Formula 1? Now, obviously, Colton Herta won a bunch of go-karting titles and junior races and championships, just like everybody else on this list. But where Colton is different is that he's sort of already in a top level of motorsport in IndyCar. So as much as I am including Colton Herta in this list, I don't know if, or maybe more so why, he would make the move over to Formula 1. Yes, Formula 1 is the pinnacle of motorsport, but he's doing quite well in an IndyCar, so I don't see if he'd make the move over. The team of Andretti is very much behind him, and he even came P2 in the standings last year, just behind Spanish driver Alex Palou. So for the 25-year-old to make the move over from IndyCar to Formula 1 maybe seems a bit unlikely to me, as much as I would love to see that. Although I do worry that this could maybe further damage IndyCar's credibility among a lot of Formula 1 fans. Just imagine for a minute that Colton Herta comes over from IndyCar to Formula 1 and everyone's bigging up to be one of the best IndyCar drivers on the grid. He then comes into Formula 1 and kind of flops. I'm not saying I think that would happen, I'm just saying, what if? And then a lot of Formula 1 fans who already claim that IndyCar isn't much of a competitive field. That wouldn't be a great image for IndyCar if one of their best drivers came over and sort of flopped. But like I said, that's not what I think would happen, I'm just saying if. There is also another problem for Colton Herta in the form of FIA Super License points. In case you're not aware, you need 40 points within the last 3 years to qualify for a Formula 1 Super License. And currently, Colton Herta only has 31. He got 30 of those for his P2 finish in IndyCar last year, and he got 1 point for finishing P10 in the standings the year before. Which means that this year he will have to finish the standings in at least P4 to get a chance at that Super License. Or maybe also take part in a bunch of FP1 sessions because you also get points for that. But realistically, he would need to aim for a P4 finish. Now for some quick-fire honourable mentions, because otherwise this will be a 2-hour video of me talking about the entirety of the Formula 2 and Formula 3 grid. First up, you've got Alex Stan, who's from Ireland. He's currently taking part in Formula 2 and is part of the McLaren Junior programme. There's also Pepe Marti, who I mentioned earlier, also in Formula 2. And as well, Luke Browning in Formula 2, he's part of the Williams Academy. In Formula 3, there's another McLaren Junior in the form of Ugo Ugochukwu, who's not had the best start to Formula 3 this year, but that's still a very exciting young prospect. Also in Formula 3, you've got the young Finnish driver Tuukka Taponen. Competing this year in GB3 alongside Freddie Slater is the young Brit Deegan Fairclough, who last year made history in British F4 and is a very, very exciting young driver. If you made it this far, please let me know down in the comments who you're most excited to see from this list, or indeed if there's any drivers that I didn't mention today that you think could be a Formula 1 driver in the future. And if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can carry on putting these videos out for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.